week one, basically we learnt about what is a suit and how it's someone who manages clients, and how you make the best suit, which is knowing and understanding the client, asking questions, knows what they're doing, knows the client industry, and adds value and exceeds expectations. And so the way this relates to our project is that this gave us the inspiration to further research our client in Honda. So we really knew everything about their history, how our technological idea could implement with them, and how it could benefit them, and really understanding the industry they're in, and how we could both team up, both organizations, to create a successful promotion really of our technological idea.
So in week 2, we had a guest lecture from Jack Smith and John Dawson from Mindshare. And they put some interesting quotes up on their lecture that detailed that digital spending will surpass TV in the next year. So that really got us thinking about how we could use digital media or social media to really push our message across, and considering we partnering with an innovative company and using an innovative product and using a technology such as like Snapchat geofilters and Instagram stories that are all fairly new in the marketing world would be fitting for the product that we're using. So in week 2 we also had our first meeting with the group, which was interesting, and everyone got to meet everyone, and that's when we first started discussing which social issue we're going to come up with, and dividing up the tasks and all those sorts of things. So unfortunately we actually lost a group member in week 2, and that required us to divide up her tasks as well. So in week 3 the lectures were on how to find out what the client would really want, and that gave us some really good insights in finding out a clear understanding of what the client wants and needs are. We also met again to discuss and start the project summary statement, which was during week 4, and we also created a Google Doc where we could put in our research and findings and all of those sorts of things and ideas.
And then, so for week 4, we learnt about 3 main things, so constraints, risk management, and assumptions. So in terms of constraints, how we learnt about the triple constraint triangle: time, cost, quality. So really for the constraints in our project, I'd say it'd be sticking to the word limit for the project summary statement and the working docs. Also a constraint with formatting. So when we created the videos, using a MacBook, which was all Apple software, and then other members of our group had Android devices, so always formatting the two to create that video was challenging at times. And then for risk management, basically I'd say the main things was the risk in our technological idea of the Leica product, because it hasn't really been tested on a mass market and on the commercial level, so there really was a risk in our idea to see if it would successfully work and be implemented with children with autism. And then assumptions. So assumptions were, the main things for our group was that we initially had 4 members, but then midway through one of our members dropped out. So we had assumed initially that we'd have the 4 members throughout to split up the work, but then we split down to 3. And also the assumption that all of us could attend meetings, but as you know, in uni, people have other obligations, so we couldn't always attend meetings. So those would be really...
In week 5, in the lectures, we learnt about the time management matrix. That was really useful for us because we were able to, because we lost a group member early on in week 2, we probably had more tasks to complete per person than many of the other groups. And by using the time managing matrix, we were able to clearly define what tasks we had to complete and when, and make sure that we weren't falling into any procrastination pitfalls and all that sort of stuff. Over the week 5, we met a few times and discussed the infographics, the visual diary, and the remaining research that we had to do for our pitch and major project.
Hi, I'm Deborah, and in week 6 I had finished watching Linda videos on infographics, and I started playing around with, it's called Pictochart, and on here, by week 6, I had become confident to start finalising pictures and statistical information that I've researched about children that suffer from autism for the assessment. So in week 7, I made sure that I checked on the ABS website that I had all the correct information to propose to the client from the Australian Bureau of Statistics. Week 8 as well, I had to make sure that I got enough information about the technology and how it could help the children with autism to propose to our client Honda. Just making sure it's everything we're looking for the client, make sure it's innovative enough for Honda as well. So all that concluded through the break was just to recap on the actual Lika, the product, which will help children, their behaviour, their learning. Just making sure that all the information I have is correct and none of it's, everything's valid pretty much. So if I go into Pictochart, which is what I've used for my infographic, I made sure I included all the relevant information as well as the images to make it clear. It just keeps going down and why it would be a perfect fit. And use some of their icons just to elaborate more on how this bottom part for the business will combine with the product for Lika and children and autism and how to fix it. So yeah.
Week 10, we had to watch the pitch documentary, which was great because it gave us a lot of insights into how actual agencies worked on a brief that they were presented by a client, and how one wrong idea can completely make you miss the idea of the brief and therefore lose the account. During this week, we also had another meeting to discuss the finalization of the pitch video, the WIP, WBS, and deliverables documents, and make sure that everything was in order on those documents and anything that we wanted to change before the final edit of the pitch video. In week 11, the lectures on persuasive presentation were helpful for us because it changed a few things in the final pitch edit. It also made us realize that maybe we weren't as confident in answering the questions from the client about the product and also client's history and why it would be a perfect fit. And therefore, we really decided to boost up on the research that we were going to do into both of those areas. We also had another meeting to discuss the final edit of the pitch video as well as the process video. And we divided up what each of us were going to do for the extra research that we wanted to do for the upcoming grilling from the client.